I am Margaret Ellis, a 71-year-old widow living in the rainy, evergreen city of Portland, Oregon. My life has always been simple, yet full of responsibility, and for decades, I poured my heart into my family and the boutique hotel chain my late husband, Richard, built from the ground up. Even now, when I walk along the quiet streets near my apartment, watching the drizzle slide down the windows, I feel a strange mix of nostalgia and vigilance. Losing Richard 5 years ago left an emptiness that never quite went away, yet it also left me in charge of something precious: our hotels, which had grown into a modest empire of charm and elegance. People often asked how I managed to keep everything running smoothly at my age, and I would smile softly, thinking about the countless nights I spent balancing ledgers, negotiating contracts, and quietly solving problems behind the scenes. Being a widow in my 70s has taught me patience, resilience, and the subtle art of reading people, because in a world full of smiles, the shadows are often where the truth hides. I have always believed that family is the strongest force, and protecting that family and its legacy is my responsibility, no matter the obstacles. After Richard's passing, I inherited full control of the boutique hotel chain, a responsibility that seemed both overwhelming and vital. The hotels weren't just buildings or businesses, they were the embodiment of Richard's dreams, painstakingly built over decades, each with its unique charm and story. I took my role seriously, attending to every detail, from payroll to renovation plans, while also mentoring my children. My daughter, Sophie, is 34, vibrant and ambitious, with a natural eye for design and guest experience. My son, Liam, 37, is more analytical, a sharp mind for finance and operations. Together, they were eager to learn, but I knew they weren't ready to face the harsh realities of betrayal and corporate deception. My days became a mix of boardroom meetings, calls with vendors, and late-night reviews of financial statements, all the while keeping a watchful eye on Sophie and Liam's involvement. I wanted them to feel confident, yet safe, under my guidance, and I prided myself on being the quiet protector behind their growth. Every success they celebrated felt personal, yet I always carried a shadow of caution, a feeling that something unseen could threaten everything we had built. One rainy evening, I decided to visit Sophie's condo to discuss an upcoming design revamp for one of our smaller hotels. The streets glistened with fresh rain, and the city lights reflected softly in puddles, creating a calm atmosphere that belied the storm about to hit my life. As I entered her living room, I noticed her phone buzzing on the side table. Sophie was in another room, and curiosity nudged me closer. I heard snippets of conversation that made my pulse quicken. The voice on the other end was low and conspiratorial, whispering about transferring funds and forging documents. At first, I questioned my own hearing. Perhaps it was just stress playing tricks on me. But the words became clearer with each passing second. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about the voice and the tone screamed danger. My hand trembled slightly as I realized that these weren't just random financial dealings. This was something closer to home, a betrayal that could shake the foundation of everything Richard and I had built together. The calm drizzle outside felt almost ironic, like the city itself was masking the tension creeping into my life. The more I listened, the more my heart sank. The voice was familiar, a person we had welcomed into our family circles and trusted implicitly for years. The betrayal was not coming from a stranger, but someone we had shared meals with, celebrated birthdays alongside, and invited to every major family event. My mind raced, trying to reconcile the kindness I had known with the deceit I now suspected. The words they spoke were precise, almost clinical. Instructions to manipulate ledgers, forge signatures, and quietly siphon money from the hotels. I felt as if a veil had been lifted, showing me the hidden dangers that had been creeping around our family empire, invisible until now. Anger, fear, and disbelief mingled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. My first instinct was to confront them immediately, but a small, cautious voice inside reminded me that exposure without preparation could ruin everything. The stakes were enormous. Not just the business, but Sophie and Liam's future, our family reputation, and the emotional security we had taken years to build. That night, I sat quietly by Sophie's living room window, staring at the rain and thinking about every decision I had to make in the next few days. By the time I returned to my own apartment that night, I knew I had to act, but carefully. The betrayal was precise and dangerous. Any rash move could jeopardize not just our assets, but the family's emotional foundation. I began reviewing old contracts, invoices, and financial statements, comparing them with Richard's original notes and handwriting. Subtle inconsistencies emerged, numbers that didn't add up, signatures that looked almost right but carried tiny differences, patterns that only someone with deep familiarity could notice. My eyes burned from hours of scrutiny, yet I felt a strange surge of empowerment. Finally, I had a direction. I made a list of every suspicious transaction, every questionable decision, and every person who might be involved. It wasn't just about money. It was about protecting the trust and love my family had built. With a quiet determination, I told myself that I would not let deception steal our legacy. That night, I promised myself that I would act strategically, consulting experts where needed, and ensure that Sophie and Liam would inherit not only the business, but also the lessons of vigilance, courage, and resilience. The storm outside mirrored my own tumultuous thoughts, but deep inside, I felt the first spark of a plan that could protect everything we held dear. The next morning, I couldn't shake the unease that clung to me like a shadow. The betrayal I had discovered wasn't abstract anymore. It had a face, a name, and a history with my family. It was Thomas Caldwell, a family friend and longtime associate who had been involved with our boutique hotels for over 15 years. We had celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and even Richard's retirement party with him. To think that someone so close could orchestrate such deceit felt like a punch to the chest. I sat in my apartment, staring at the muted sunlight streaming through the blinds, thinking about every interaction I had with Thomas in the past few months. Small things now seemed suspicious. The casual questions about contracts, the insistence on reviewing certain invoices alone, the way he would linger in my office when I wasn't looking. It was as if pieces of a puzzle I hadn't noticed before were finally snapping into place. Anger bubbled inside me, but I knew that raw emotion would not protect my children or our legacy. I had to approach this strategically. I began to map out everything I knew about his actions, connecting dots between dates, payments, and meetings. I realized that Thomas had been meticulous, leaving almost no trace, and that I would need more than my instincts to confront him. I would need proof. Undeniable, irrefutable evidence. And yet, underneath the anger, there was a sense of resolve. I understood something crucial that day. Betrayal doesn't weaken you. It sharpens your focus if you let it. That evening, I called Sophie and Liam separately, pretending everything was normal, yet keeping my mind alert to their reactions. I wanted to gauge if they had noticed anything unusual themselves, and their responses reassured me that the threat was largely hidden from them. After dinner, I retreated to my office, a small room overlooking the city skyline, and began to craft a plan. I knew I couldn't act impulsively. Every move needed precision. My first step was to ensure that Sophie and Liam remained unaware of the extent of Thomas's betrayal to prevent unnecessary panic. My next step was to document everything meticulously. I spread contracts, ledgers, and emails across my desk, highlighting anomalies, suspicious transactions, and patterns that seemed deliberate. As I worked, memories of Richard's advice whispered in my mind. Margaret, always trust your intuition, but back it with evidence. I realized then that intuition alone would not be enough to protect the family and our empire. I needed expertise. The night wore on, rain tapping gently against the window, and I felt a strange combination of tension and clarity. Each anomaly I documented, each pattern I recognized, fueled my determination. This was no longer just about money. It was about justice, integrity, and ensuring that my children could inherit not just a business, but a legacy free from deception. The following day, I discreetly reached out to a forensic accountant, a professional known for uncovering financial manipulation with surgical precision. I explained the situation in careful terms without revealing the names of those involved until the evidence could be corroborated. I also contacted a trusted lawyer, someone who had guided Richard and me through multiple contracts over the years. Together, they agreed to help me gather documents, trace suspicious transfers, and identify any gaps that Thomas might have exploited. The process was slow and meticulous, each review requiring hours of careful attention to detail. As I pored over spreadsheets, invoices, and email chains, I began to see a clearer picture of Thomas's actions. Every irregularity was part of a pattern, a calculated attempt to undermine the company and siphon off funds. While the discovery was painful, it was also empowering. I realized that knowledge was my shield. I could no longer rely on trust alone. I needed concrete evidence, airtight proof that would protect my children, the business, and our reputation. The work was exhausting, and yet there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that each piece of evidence brought me closer to restoring order and confronting the betrayal head-on. The city lights outside shimmered against the rain-soaked streets, and I felt a deep sense of focus settle over me. I was ready to take the next step, carefully and decisively. Weeks passed, and I continued to gather evidence with the accountant and lawyer. Each meeting, each analysis revealed more about the scope of Thomas's deceit. It became clear that he had been siphoning funds over the past 2 years, cleverly disguising transactions as routine expenses. The betrayal had been systematic, but no system is flawless. I realized that patience was my ally. Rushing the confrontation could alert Thomas and allow him to cover his tracks. I meticulously organized the documents, emails, and forensic reports into a comprehensive dossier that left no room for doubt. I also practiced how I would approach the board, thinking through every possible reaction, preparing for attempts at manipulation, lies, or charm. I envisioned the moment I would finally confront Thomas, imagining the tension, the fear, and the inevitable revelation. Every step I took was calculated, guided by the dual goals of protecting the company and shielding Sophie and Liam from unnecessary emotional strain. By the end of the 9th week, I felt a sense of quiet confidence. I had evidence, expert support, and a clear strategy. The betrayal had shaken me, but it had also forged a clarity and strength I hadn't known I possessed. I was ready. Finally, the day came to confront the betrayal. I scheduled a board meeting under the guise of a routine review. The room was filled with familiar faces, some oblivious to the storm that had been quietly brewing behind the scenes. Thomas entered with his usual confident smile, unaware that the truth was about to come crashing down. I remained calm, voice steady but firm, as I laid out the evidence piece by piece. Transactions, altered contracts, and email communications that left no room for denial. The room grew silent. Eyes widened as the truth unfolded. Thomas attempted to deflect, to charm his way out, but I was prepared. Every argument I anticipated, every attempt at manipulation, was countered with facts and expert testimony. Sophie and Liam sat beside me, stunned but attentive, realizing for the first time the magnitude of what had been happening. As the meeting concluded, Thomas had no defense left. The betrayal was undeniable. I had safeguarded the company, protected my children, and restored integrity to our legacy. The sense of relief was profound, but so was the weight of responsibility. I knew that vigilance and courage had been my weapons, and that the lessons learned in those weeks would resonate for years to come. The tension in the boardroom was palpable as I prepared to face Thomas Caldwell. He sat across the table, exuding the same charm he always had, attempting to mask the fear I knew must be hiding beneath. I felt Sophie and Liam's hands brush mine briefly, subtle but reassuring reminders of why I was here, not just to protect a business, but to safeguard my family. I opened the dossier, spreading the meticulously gathered evidence across the polished oak table. Each document, every email, and every ledger discrepancy was presented in chronological order, leaving no room for misinterpretation. Thomas attempted his first move, speaking smoothly. "Margaret, surely there's some misunderstanding here. These numbers, they could be errors." His voice was calm, but I could see the tension tightening his jaw. I held his gaze steadily, voice firm yet controlled. "Thomas, you've broken our trust. The evidence doesn't lie. You have no place in this company or our family's life." Sophie and Liam watched intently, a mixture of shock and gratitude written across their faces. It was the first time they truly understood the scale of the betrayal. The room seemed to shrink around us, every heartbeat echoing the tension. Thomas tried to regain control, but each of his defenses crumbled under the weight of the proof. It was as if the very walls of the boardroom were bearing witness to the truth finally being revealed. The room fell silent as the final piece of evidence was laid before everyone. Faces pale, murmurs stifled. Thomas's confident demeanor began to crumble. I could feel the years of manipulation and deceit unraveling in real time. "These transfers," I said, pointing to a series of forged signatures, "were deliberate and systematic. You betrayed the family's trust, and you underestimated our vigilance." The board members exchanged glances, some shocked, others nodding in silent approval of the diligence that had brought this truth to light. Thomas's attempts to charm Sophie and Liam failed miserably. My children, who had been largely shielded from the full scale of the betrayal until now, saw for the first time the depth of the threat we had been facing. I noticed a subtle shift in their expressions, relief mixed with an almost overwhelming gratitude. They realized that their mother, though alone in action for weeks, had carried the weight of the family's future on her shoulders and had emerged victorious. The entire experience, painful as it had been, brought a clarity that left no room for doubt. Protecting family sometimes requires courage that goes beyond comfort, beyond fear. I had done what was necessary, and for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe fully. After the confrontation, Sophie and Liam approached me quietly, tears in their eyes, each expressing relief and gratitude in their own way. "Mom, I can't believe what you did," Sophie whispered, voice breaking. "You saved everything we worked for, and more." Liam clasped my hand tightly, adding, "We would have been lost without you." Their words were both comforting and humbling, a reminder that the invisible battles we fight often go unnoticed until the victory is complete. I held them close, feeling the mixture of exhaustion and pride wash over me. The weight of responsibility, the long nights of investigation, and the quiet fear of betrayal had been taxing, yet this moment, their acknowledgement, their understanding, made every struggle worthwhile. In that embrace, I realized that the true victory was not just in reclaiming the business, but in preserving the trust and love that bound us together as a family. I had navigated a storm, kept the heart of our legacy intact, and ensured that Sophie and Liam could continue their lives with confidence and security. The rain outside had ceased, leaving the city glistening under a soft evening glow, mirroring the sense of renewal that filled my soul. In the weeks that followed, I assumed the role of interim chairwoman, guiding Sophie and Liam not only in operational decisions, but in understanding the subtle complexities of integrity, vigilance, and courage. Each day was a lesson, from reviewing financial statements to mentoring them in negotiating ethically, managing staff, and anticipating challenges. I emphasized that business acumen alone was not enough. The true measure of leadership lay in protecting the values and trust that form the foundation of any enterprise. Sophie, with her creative flair, learned to blend aesthetics with financial prudence, while Liam honed his analytical skills, now with a keen sense of ethical responsibility. Together, we began rebuilding, not just the hotels, but the confidence in ourselves and in each other. I watched them grow, knowing that the lessons of betrayal, courage, and careful vigilance would stay with them for a lifetime. The experience had strengthened our bond, reminding us that family is more than blood. It is the courage to act when others falter, and the wisdom to protect what truly matters. Every decision, every meeting became a testament to the resilience and unity we had fought to preserve. Finally, I reflected on everything we had endured: the betrayal, the long nights of investigation, the confrontation, and the quiet moments of fear and anticipation had all led to a profound understanding. Real wealth isn't just money, it's trust, family, and the courage to stand up when lies surround you. Our boutique hotel chain, now restored and thriving, stood as a testament not only to Richard's vision, but to the lessons of vigilance and integrity I had imparted to Sophie and Liam. They understood that leadership requires more than knowledge. It demands resilience, careful observation, and the willingness to act decisively when trust is broken. As I looked out at the Portland skyline, now bathed in the soft golden glow of late afternoon, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. I had protected our legacy, guided my children, and confronted betrayal with both intelligence and courage. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what the future held, the family's heart, our trust, love, and unity would remain unshakable. The storm had passed, and we were stronger for it, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together.